Now, to begin the program, I will try Hey Jude by the Beatles, the famous Beatles. Forgive me for taking such a challenge. But with COVID 19, we're going to try and entertain ourselves. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Remember to let her into your heart, and you can stand to make it better. Hey Jude, don't be afraid. You are made to go out and get up. The minute you let her under your skin, then you begin to make it better. Anytime you feel the pain, hey Judy friend, don't you carry the world upon your shoulder. For you know now, it is the fool who makes it cool by making his world a little colder. Do 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 do. Hey you, to make it better. Let's try to make this world better. Let us now do the analysis. Mazungumzo with Dr. Githere again. Thank you. Now I will take out the guitar so we can continue our procedure. Bear with me. Now again, this is your host, Gilbert Gicharu, Dr. Gilbert Gicharu Githere, coming to your homes. Thank you for welcoming me. These moments, I can say they are dark times because of the COVID and the problem of people eliminating others without caring about their lives. And this I mean in the United States, because this is where I live. I live in Hawaii, in Mililani. Now, I've been discussing about Hegel, Martin Heidegger, and trying to see the philosophy of the West. Is there a weakness in it? So that people who grow within it, they grow within it. They acquire characters or traits or behavior that in the end lead them when they join the armed forces or they join law enforcement. They are quick to anger and they can't manage anger. Quickly they get somebody who has done a mistake and then again he misbehaves a little bit. They are tempted to kind of just take a gun and shoot him without any hesitation. Sometimes their lives are not in danger. Sometimes they are. I don't say they are not. So I'm trying to look at the philosophy of the West and might be try to decipher and deconstruct to see whether we can see the underlying causes of this problem that we have. Because seriously, we go deeper into it, make the world a little colder, as the Beatles say. Don't you carry the world upon your shoulder. Let us see whether we can put it down. Make things better. Bad things, make them better. And this is what I'm trying to do, that it's not to blame anybody, but it's to go and decipher the literature, of philosophers like Immanuel Kant, Descartes, Gadamer, Richard Rorty, Hegel, Martin Heidegger, Putman, and many, many other philosophers, great philosophers out there. And try to see, is there might be behind all this cruelty that we see in human beings right now. The philosophers have contributed a little bit. Because as I said before, Hegel believed that the Germans had a much, much advanced consciousness than other people. And you can remember in the second episode that I tackled consciousness, we discovered that actually consciousness is just like photosynthesis. It has got biological inherent factors that make it what it is. The phenomenology behind photosynthesis is basically biological. In the extension ontological phenomenon, the trees actually survive because they can perform photosynthesis. An inherent thing given into them since primordial, since the beginning of time. Now, if that is the case, consciousness is the equivalent of photosynthesis. A natural trait. It's like digestion of your food in the stomach. It doesn't matter that you come from Kenya. You can't digest your food differently unless you have a very, very, very unique mutation. And mutation is possible. Once in a while you get a mutation even in photosynthesis. But I'm saying in the natural way, the way people are created. Digestion, photosynthesis, and consciousness, they perform almost in the same way. So you can see, to say that a certain group has a higher ability of forming higher consciousness, it's kind of eugenics. It's kind of trying to push supremacy, because this is how problems start. Because you can see, as I said in the other program, if you read Jordan Winthrop's book, the Origins of Racism in America, the title you can check, but it's Jordan Winthrop or Winthrop Jordan. He's a scholar who has written a very beautiful book, Ball, B-A-L, Slaves in the Family. You can see that actually philosophy contributes a lot to what people end up behaving like. In the original position, when they start to do something, they go to get the philosophy behind it right. They try to do that so that they can satisfy their psyche. That's very, very important with human beings. They will always try to philosophize about something they're doing. They're doing it right. And sometimes, to follow the philosophers of the West, they try to seek for the truth in what they're going to practice. So, as Jordan Winthrop tells us in this book, before there was a philosophy that the indigenous people of West Africa who were brought as slaves to South Carolina, North Carolina, Mississippi, and Louisiana, they were 2/3 human beings and 1/3 animals. The philosophers arrived using Charles Darwin's theory, the origin of species, that the indigenous people from West Africa who were brought to the Americas as slaves were not fully human beings. They were one-third animals. So in most cases, as I said in that program, and I'm not going to rub it in, if you wanted to get the statistics of the slaves, you had to go to the Ministry of Livestock, the Department of Interior, I think it's Interior in America. They were not kept with other human beings. So you can see is to reduce a human being to the lowest level using philosophy. And that's why I'm saying, for us to rectify some problems that we have, okay, we can pass bills like the Civil Rights Bill of 1964, and try to alleviate some of the problems. They say in education that all schools are open to everybody, and schools will be funded equally. It doesn't matter if a school is in Bronx, in Manhattan, or Brooklyn, or Los Angeles, or Las Vegas, the poor areas might be of Las Vegas, Los Angeles. They will all be funded equally by the Department of Education. There will be no segregation about education. Okay, that's all right. But the basics of trying to see that some people are not losing their lives, they are not being shot by the law enforcement because of the color of their skin, because of their ethnicity. We got to see the root cause. Now, today I'm going to look at truth again, because the word truth has kind of made the Western philosophers believe they're the keepers of knowledge, that they're the ones who check how right the universal knowledge is. They have become the ombudsman. So when they say you are 2/3 human and 1/3 animal, all the people believe. Now, knowing, to know. It's a very important word, to know. But it's a word. It has been called by philosophers. There's nothing special about to know. Consciousness has the ability of knowing. And this is an inherited biological trait that every human being has. And that's one thing I want you to kind of understand. There's nothing special that you have more knowing than the other one because of your ethnicity. No. Or your religion, or gender, creed. And it's an endowment. It's an endowment to consciousness, knowing. Most of the time when things are presented to consciousness as knowing, in most cases the Western philosophers will say that is true. Anything which goes to consciousness and consciousness deciphers it and sees that this is in the realm of knowledge, it can label it true. This is how people have analyzed how we get onto truth. Because you see, as I told you, the philosophers have to set the standard of how you use a measure, how you use a word, because words are tools. And the Western philosophers, that's why I'm telling you, most of the problems we have stem from educational system that we have in place. It has got to be fine-tuned. It's got to be changed because there is so much misinformation. Previously, in the primordial, in the historicity of things, in the bringing the historical aspect into fruition, there's some distortion that have happened in the words that we utilize in our language and in our daily lives to perform our things in the environment, to exist. Because basically a human being is on this earth, as we've said in the previous program, to survive. He's coping. He's in a thrownness. He has been thrown into the environment. And that is what Martin Heidegger, the there, existence, he has called it Dasein. Dasein. Dasein means existence. You are out there. And one interesting thing that I have come with, so that it can become like a helper to those people who really have not read Martin Heidegger in detail, I have come up with an example, because sometimes it's important when you're talking to people to give them something which can make an analysis easier to them. Because I don't intend making things difficult because I'm on TV or I'm speaking about Martin Heidegger or philosophy. I like to be simple in difficult things. So I have tried to take, you see the lunar, the shuttle, and the things we send to the moon. I have picked the lunar, the rover, the probing robot which was sent by NASA and sent to the surface of the moon. And it keeps on sending messages to us of what it is finding in that environment. So the throwness of that lunar rover onto the moon is actually almost the same thing that Martin Heidegger is talking when he's talking about Dasein. That robot on the surface of the moon is like my Dasein. It has been flung by NASA onto the moon. And it's trying to build the consciousness of the NASA people, the consciousness of NASA, and the knowing they're going to have, their understanding and their experience and their perception and the concept and the intuition and the notions they are going to have about the moon surface is all going to be a blazing of the rover, the robot out there, thrown into the environment. And that's what you call existence. Now that existence is exactly when human beings found themselves with the Big Bang Theory, that they were there, they found them in the environment. They started the struggle of surviving, existence. They had to find out how do they survive this hostile, cruel environment. Hard to survive in. And that's a good example. When the feelers of the rover sense it, they look around and the feelers feel, oh, this thing is wet. And they send a message, oh, there's some water, but I will continue to check. That's the first probe. But it might not be water. It might be some other liquid, which is typical to the moon surface. But the rover senses with its feelers as if this was liquid. And it sends to the consciousness of the people at NASA in Houston. And they say, oh, we think on the surface of the moon there is liquid, might be water. And that's the there. Now, when is the consciousness really going to say, oh, I know now for sure? Everything agrees with the water element. What the feeler is feeling on the surface of the moon, I think that is water, and that is true. Agreeing, and they have judged that is water. But you can see the whole activity is an endowment of all human beings. That's how human beings acquire knowledge. They acquire the knowledge of planting and harvesting, which plants to plant in this season against this other season. How long should the rains come before this plant does well and they have more produce? This is all discussions that human beings are involved in for the formation of knowledge. And if you travel all over the world, as Asante have said, oral traditions, they have all these things. In the oral tradition of the indigenous people, you will find they have knowledge of how to grow taro if it is Hawaiians. They know taro for wetlands, how much water it requires, how long it needs to be planted. Is it planted during the full moon? Is it planted during the day? And what are the best seeds? And how do you tend taro when you have it growing? This is the knowledge the Hawaiians have, primordial, time immemorial. They don't learn it from anybody from the colonialists who came. Captain Cook. No. They don't. They had this knowledge, primordial. So, a knowledge, you can see knowledge is acquired in the same way. In the same way. Now, one thing which human beings are commended for when they are forming consciousness is that a human being is a caring entity. Caring is one of the very important elements or entities in a human being. Ontiko is an important fact in a human being, caring. Because actually caring is what goes, somebody has a family, and once he has a family, he has friends, and then he has a village or a community he works with to accomplish bettering lives of the people around him. It's just because of caring. And when he is uncovering things, uncovering and disclosing things in his environment, you can see Martin Heidegger actually goes deeper and deeper to see the entities that makes us beings, human beings. What makes us beings that care for others? And he goes deeper and deeper using phenomenology, using hermeneutics, to uncover the entities that make us human beings. Uncovered, being in the world, ready at hand, present at hand. When we acquire these entities and we have them present at hand, we can use them. They have been uncovered. So he tries to dig out these entities that make us human beings. But in doing this search and deciphering of these entities, they are all endowments of all human beings, indigenous peoples included. So where we start to segregate one another is where I don't see Because the philosophy itself, apart if you go to things like Markov by Hitler, then you see this kind of literature, which are intentionally written to discriminate others. Then you have language and words used to belittle and to make the other people look inferior. That's purposeful, intentional, and it's bad ideas. But if you look at the philosophers as they continue to decipher what makes us beings, there is nothing you start to see, oh, that guy is from Australia and he's an aborigine. Oh, he might not have that entity that has been discovered. We know they lack that entity of perception, a perception of being able to perceive. That is a dingo. You know, you're in Australia and you see a dingo. You cannot mistake it for a domesticated dog. You start running away because it can devour a human being. Or you see a lion. A human being is unaware. That's a dangerous animal. So these things that I'm saying, they are God-given traits onto human beings so they can survive. They're there. There is nobody who has more than the other one. Then you start to see human beings, they want to bring this segregation and others into the forefront of their lives. They want to look, oh, I'm important than these people. And they use color, they use religion, they use gender, and they use all kinds of things to kind of say, oh, I am better than them. But in uncovering and disclosing and concealing and unconcealing, inner, outer, all these things that Hegel and Martin Heidegger decipher about consciousness and decipher about being, they are all found in all human beings. So the entities that Heidegger comes up with, because he kind of builds up the consciousness is actually the home of truth. Consciousness is actually like the sphere, the living ball, that the truth is like its oxygen. Consciousness. That's what you can say. But it has no any other work. Human beings in this world, they're just trying to better their lives, to live better than yesterday. If they were using taro leaves as a plate, they want to go and get a metal plate at some point, or make a more durable, more lasting plate from either the shell of a coconut, the inside thing, and they use it like a drinking container. Or they carve a nice kisi stone and they use that as a plate. It will last long and they can clean it. Then they go and discover metallurgy, making things from metal. They make a metal plate. A human being will always strive to better his life. And it doesn't matter where he is. Left alone, he's always creative and he's an innovator. And if you look at the sciences of the indigenous people and you record them, you'll find innovation, discoveries, creativity. Look at the sailors, like Noah Thompson, the sailor, the indigenous sailor who helped the Hokulea sail from Hawaii to Tahiti, an indigenous Polynesian. I'll try to get his name and make it known to you, but you can check. The Hokulea. These were indigenous navigators. They had knowledge, primordial, before Captain Cook ever landed in Hawaii. The Hawaiians were able to go to Rotorua pretty free show Tahiti using the stars of the heavens. They knew their positions and they could follow them, and they knew exactly which stars will guide them to reach Tahiti. You just imagine, they didn't have a compass. And that's why I'm telling you, indigenous people are endowed with highest forms of knowledge. They might not speak about truth. They just say, we found an answer to our problem. A better star to locate Tahiti in a shorter time, to locate the wind direction, the atmosphere. What kind of factors are you going to have in the ocean to know that the winds are right now facing Tahiti, and if they start moving with those winds, they're going to hit Tahiti at a certain time and day. So this kind of, the words people use like reason, that you got to be reasonable to be knowledgeable, that's misinformation. Reason is, if you want to postulate, to assert things, then you have got to try and get, how will I assert things onto my knowledge? Then you say, once I say I'm using reason and I'm rational, then I'll reach the objective reality. It's kind of, manipulating knowledge. And you find these things, they have nothing really to do with truth or making knowledge better. I'll kind of pause there, because these things, people have to digest them. And please forgive me, because sometimes the people who feel strong on things like truth, perception, they're the foundation of their life. Once you take them away and they are not as important, they feel they're lost. No, I'm just trying to clarify a few things. Until we meet again, this is Dr. Gilbert Gicharu Githere saying ciao, ciao.